What's up, guys? Let's hop right into it. Season 1 with the brand new updates. What is the fastest way to level up from 1 to 100 in an efficient way? Because even though you may get more XP one way, it's actually going to slow down your character's power progression if you don't do it the way that I'm going to explain in the video. So starting right off, this is a very frequently asked question. Slaydra, what do I do with my season blessings? This is part of the battle pass. Even if you don't buy the battle pass, you'll start to get these things called smoldering ashes. What would I recommend getting in the very beginning? Honestly, just getting the barber is one of the most important things, but there is XP here. So what would I get in a order? As long as I already have the barber, I'm going to go ahead and put it into XP, and then getting the extra length of elixirs can be okay, or the urn of malice. So those are kind of the ones that I would focus in on. But once you hit level 100, you can unspec out of your urn of aggression and maybe get some more gold so you can go ahead and re-roll your things. But for the most part, the XP one, it's relatively small as long as you already get the barber. That's one of the most important things in this season. This season, season 1, is season of you get the barber or you're not going to be able to deal that much damage. At the end of the day, this is what this season is. So starting right off, I do have to mention this. If you guys have not completed the campaign, because there's always newer players jumping into this game, if you are playing season 1 and you have not done the campaign, you have to do the campaign. After you do the campaign, you're going to be getting access to the open world, which will have a lot more activities for you to go ahead and do. So what are the first things that you want to do from level 1? So starting off at level 1, you can actually talk to an NPC. His name is Cormac, and we're going to be able to do this seasonal quest line. The whole season quest line is roughly about an hour. It's relatively short, but there will be certain intervals where you will need to reach a certain level to sort of progress more efficiently. So what you want to do is Malignant tunnels. You'll start to see that on the map, there's going to be a little leaf on top of these little dungeon icons. When you go in there, you're going to be able to eliminate these monsters that will drop the Wrathful Hearts. That's the biggest power progression that you can get in the game, and it's one of the most important things with any leveling guide. It needs to focus in on getting your hearts earlier on. So what hearts are the best ones for the early game? So to sum it up right here, you really want to get these set of hearts earlier on. So revenge is going to be good throughout your whole process, but ideally trying to get a revenge heart is really good early on. And then later, you really just want to try to get the barber. Now, it depends on the class that you're playing, because each class has a different set of hearts. And the more important thing is in the earlier stages, there's going to be a bunch of hearts that will grant you some sort of bonus damage, or it'll give you some sort of flat damage. The flat damage ones are actually really good for leveling. For example, the rogue has one where you can throw up a shadow decoy, it taunts all the enemies, and then it explodes after a duration. It's a really nice thing to have, not only for survivability because it taunts everything, but also it does some damage. There's a bunch of different ones for different classes, and I don't want to make this video too long and go over the best hearts for every single class, but basically, try to socket every single piece of your jewelry with a heart. It's going to significantly increase your leveling process. So you want to do this as early as possible. Just try to fill up everything with some stuff. I know at level 1, you're probably not going to get rings with sockets, and also getting, of course, rings and amulets in general. They take a little bit of progression, but getting these earlier on is going to be good, because then you're going to be able to get a huge power spike. Another huge power spike that you're going to be getting is when you start getting some of these aspects. Since I usually focus on rogue content, I'm going to go ahead and mention the rogues, but there's a lot of other ones. This website is d4builds.gg, and it does offer the ability to see this entire map, and you're able to see which dungeon has which aspects. Since more people are playing Twisting Blades this season, I'm just going to mention this one over here. So if you do the dungeon Jalal's Vigil, you're going to be able to get the Twisting Blades aspect, and this is going to be a huge power spike. There's lots of other great ones. I already have a video that goes over the best aspects, and I'll also link that down below. But for the most part, try to get the ones that you need. Certain areas, though, just as a heads up, may require you to reach a certain level because the monsters will be too high in a certain area to kind of progress in that state. So getting your aspects is really good. And you don't just want your damage one, you want usually your basic skills grant you damage reduction. There's a couple different ones, or the aspect of disobedience is good as well to give you extra armor in the earlier stages. So you want to get your powers ASAP. And again, it depends on what class you're playing, but you want to try to get this as early as possible. Next up, you want to do your renown, which is exactly what I'm doing in the gameplay as far as the background. And the reason why you want to do your renown as soon as possible is because in the later stages of the game, you just want to do nightmare dungeons. Now, if you have not completed your Altars of Lilith and other things that kind of progress from Season 0, you want to do this as soon as possible, because in the end game, you want to focus in on doing as much nightmare dungeons as possible, because those give you the best loot, the best XP in the entire game. Even though they've buffed certain things, they're still going to be the best. So what you want to do is basically get all of the waypoints. You can complete the strongholds, getting the side quests done, and then getting areas discovered. Now, the other thing that's really good with this is the side dungeons can actually be completed in a group. If you are partied within a group, one person can do one dungeon, another person can do another dungeon. You do not need to be in the same dungeon to get that completed. If you want to go ahead and party up with people, the fastest way to level up and get your renown done is actually going to the official Diablo Sanctuary Discord and just find people that are doing it. There's a bunch of different channels for people doing like endgame content or earlier progression. This is one of the best ways to actually party up with people. Or if you want to, in theory, the best way to actually level up is to just pay someone gold and they will basically farm the content for you. It's basically going to be kind of a power leveling boost, but most people are watching this video because they want to be able to do it solo, or if they don't already have a friend to go ahead and power level them. It still takes a long time. It's not like Diablo 3 where in 5 to 10 minutes you can get max level. It does take a while, but that is another alternative way to method to go ahead and progress. But yeah, you want to get your Altars of Lilith done. You want to go ahead and finish all of these, and these do take quite a bit of time, so don't worry. If you kind of feel too burnt out of doing these, you can go do some other content and then come back. But while you're doing these, try to also double dip with certain things with the Grim Favors. This is actually a really big way to actually complete your renown and get the Grim Favors kind of at the same time, and I'll go ahead and explain that. So the thing that you want to focus in on the earlier stages is actually doing Grim Favors. They've actually buffed it quite a bit, and in the earlier stages, it is a great way to just kind of choose maybe what slot that you have that needs kind of an upgrade piece from the tree. So you'll see over on the map that there are these pink objectives. You'll have to complete a bunch of them, and then once you reach like 10 points, you're going to be able to get a reward. It's almost like the bounties in Diablo 3. But this is the fastest way to actually progress your character. So again, go get the Malignant Hearts, and then also get your aspects, and then just start slamming out Grim Favors. And what you want to do is find the area, let's say like it's over here, in like the dry steppes area. If this is the area where all of these objectives are going to be needed, you can go to the waypoint in that area, like the nearest town. Like for example, let's say like right here where my mouse is, you could actually go to the town, get a bunch of different quests, and you can basically double dip or even triple dip when you are completing a dungeon that is also maybe got a quest in there, and that's also going to give you Grim Favors. So you get basically multiple things completed at once, and it's a huge way to get your quests, your Grim Favors done, and on top of that, you get your renown done. So you're basically triple dipping if you do it this way, and it is excellent to go ahead and do this. So that's one of the best ways to actually level up. You basically can go over to d4builds.gg and then go to their map, and it kind of shows you where the quests are, and it's kind of just helpful. So you want to go to the area where there's, again, the Grim Favors and the quests, and you basically get to do more stuff kind of completed as soon as possible. And then obviously eventually you want to do your altars if you have not done this already. It is a huge part of your progression. But once you start getting to about level 40ish, you can think about doing the capstone. There's no punishment for doing it early and failing, so ideally if you feel like your character is powerful enough, you can go ahead and go to the World Tier 2, go do the Cathedral of Light, and then just access the next world tier, because you only have access to world tier 2, but once you complete this, you will have world tier 3. And a lot of people always ask, you know, should I do world tier 1 or 2? Honestly, if you're one-shotting everything in world tier 2, then that's totally fine. But if you're not doing things fast enough, you can bump it down. The rewards aren't huge from going from world tier 1 to 2 anyways, so don't worry too much about that. But once you complete the capstone, you're going to have access to world tier 3, and then once you're in world tier 3, you're going to have access to, once you start completing some of more Grim Favors, you'll start getting sigils as drops, and that's going to significantly increase your leveling process as you'll start to be getting the Nightmare Dungeons, and you can start getting these done. So these are going to be your main source of loot and XP, because at the very end, you're going to be guaranteed getting a Legendary with the brand new buffs, as long as the monster is 35 or higher. So you just want to slam out the Nightmare Dungeons, and I'll show you guys which ones are kind of the better ones to do in a moment here, but earlier on, you're not going to be able to pick and choose because you don't have that many sigils to start salvaging and keep on crafting only the good ones. Ideally, you do this with a party. Again, the official Diablo Sanctuary Discord is a great place to find a group of players to go ahead and do this, but you just want to do Nightmare Dungeons once you're in World Tier 3. Ideally, after you finish your Renown, just going to go ahead and keep on doing Nightmare Dungeons again and again. And on top of this, you're going to be getting your glyphs. Getting your glyphs is going to access the Paragon board, and you're just going to get another point of power progression. Another thing that is very important, once you get to World Tier 3, you want to equip as many sacred pieces of items that you can, and then once you get to World Tier 4, you want to convert all your sacred items to ancestral items. And this is part of your progression in terms of your character. And a lot of people always ask, when should I upgrade my gear at the blacksmith? Honestly, I don't really wait until I get into the ancestral pieces of gear, and then I start actually upgrading. However, your weapons, you can go to level 3, that's fine, but eventually you're going to have to do Hell Tides to get some of the other currency to upgrade it. But earlier on, don't worry too much about upgrading your pieces of gear. It's basically not even worth it. But eventually, once you hit about 60 plus, again, you could do this earlier on if you want to attempt to do it. But at the end of the day, you're going to need to be at least level 60 to equip any pieces of ancestral pieces of gear anyways, but the faster that you get there, the more items that you can get ready. So once you hit level 60, you can start equipping those ancestral pieces of gear. Next up, Hell Tides. When should you be doing Hell Tides, and is the buff of Hell Tides worth actually farming? So to answer the question, is Hell Tides worth farming in terms of getting XP or loot? No. The only thing the Hell Tides are used for is the material to actually upgrade your pieces of gear. This is how I do it. I think it's the best method to actually do it. Obviously, yes, there's those chests that you can open up, and even with the increased density, it makes farming things much faster. And even though it seems like it's super exciting to get all these legendaries don't really give you any sort of extra power that you wouldn't be getting from just getting legendaries at the very end of a Nightmare Dungeon. And on top of that, you'd be losing out on the glyph XP, as well as just getting the glyphs to drop earlier on. So I would suggest just stick with Nightmare Dungeons, and the reason why is because you get glyph XP. It's the only way to progress. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck there once you're at like very high level. You're going to have to do all the Nightmare Dungeons anyway, so you might as well be efficient and do it the way that I'm mentioning, which is you only go do Hell Tides when you have a piece of gear that you need to upgrade. Otherwise, there's not really a point really to do Hell Tides. It's still not worth it in terms of XP, even with the most recent density buffs. A great website is called helltides.com, and you could just go to that website and it shows you where to go ahead and actually go for these events. So this is kind of how I farmed the Hell Tide. So it has a timer. It tells you exactly on the website where you want to go. In terms of where to go, you want to do these little orange circles. So those are going to be the events. They reset every 1 minute. Find a set of maybe 3 or 4 and just kind of go in a circle and just keep on doing them. You'll also get obols, and it is probably one of the best methods to go ahead and actually acquire all of your things. And once you get your obols, I wouldn't really waste obols until level 73. And the reason why is you're just not going to realistically get any of those ancestral pieces of gear until then. There is more than likely some sort of scaling. They haven't officially posted the numbers with it, but there definitely seems to be some scaling between your level and when you are actually using your obols. But this is helltides.com. It tells you when the next world boss is going to be spawning in. And as far as doing the world boss, if it's there, sure, you can do it. It's not the most important thing. Eventually, you're going to just not do the world boss because it's just unrewarding. Once you have enough things to actually socket your pieces of gear, that's all you really use the world boss for. And you can get it by alternate ways. But world bosses are not going to be like something that you need to focus on. Legions, it doesn't really matter too much. Again, it just comes down to Nightmare Dungeons. But this also tells you when the next Hell Tide is going to happen. So again, Hell Tide is only really used to upgrade your pieces of gear. Don't sit in the Hell Tides for the full duration. Usually, I just get enough to upgrade my piece of gear, or if I happen to need all my pieces of gear, then again, you could start farming it for the full duration, but don't sit there the full duration. It's just simply not worth it. Now, as far as which Nightmare Dungeons should you run, it's kind of up to you on what you want to run, and the reason why I say it's kind of up to you is some dungeons are going to be actually better for glyph leveling, and some dungeons are actually going to be better for XP, and some of them will have a higher density. At the end of the day, as long as you're not doing any like the D tier ones, I would stick with around the S to B tier is good. Some of these will take significantly longer, but some of them have been buffed to kind of give you more XP because there's more density. But some of the objectives just become a little bit tedious to do when you have to like untie the people, and I get that. So do the ones that you personally enjoy the most. A lot of people really enjoy the kill 3 of these things or kill 2 of these things, and then there's like a boss that you can fight at the very end. Those are kind of the ones that I personally like, and it's kind of up to you on what you personally enjoy, but some of these are much better in parties. So this website I will also link down below in the pinned comments, so you guys will have access to knowing which dungeons should be the ones that you try to look out for. But pretty much, you just want to slam out Nightmare Dungeons until you hit 100. This is the best source of XP, it is the best source of loot, and it's the only way that you can upgrade your glyphs. So Nightmare Dungeons are basically the only form of endgame content in terms of your progression. So hopefully this wraps things up, and you'll be able to understand the best way to go ahead and actually level up from 1 to 100. So again, go ahead, get your aspects, get your hearts. Basically, you can do those kind of side by side, and then you want to focus in on doing grim favors and triple dip with the way that I showed you guys. And if you do have a party, try to do separate dungeons, kind of like split bounties. It's much better. And then you're just gonna have to do your quest line of all of like the blue quests if you can, or you can do the dungeons. The dungeons is the best way because it does work with the party versus the questing. You cannot do split quests, unfortunately. They don't allow that. But anyways, that's gonna wrap up the video. If you guys enjoyed it, drop a like on it. If you're new here and do want to see more up-to-date guides when there is more, subscribe to the bell and you'll definitely see more. Take care and see you in the next video. Peace out.